So good morning. I'm Sumir Meghani. I'm co-founder and CEO of Instawork. Instawork is a mobile app that helps hospitality businesses, catering companies, event venues with flexible staffing throughout the U.S. And it's great to be here at Catersource. And what a year it's been. I think the last time we were all together, I remember having dinner with Warren a year ago in Vegas last March, and our world changed. And I'm sure, like many of you, finally, things are coming back, booked every weekend through the end of the year, and there's no staff. Just when you thought the world was returning to normal and our businesses could return to normal. So it's a real pleasure to be on a panel with two of the best in the business and local to Florida, Bill Hansen of Bill Hansen Catering and Warren Dietel of Puff and Stuff up in Tampa and Orlando. And I'm going to spend the next 30, 45 minutes asking them provocative questions about the state of labor for the events and catering industry. And then maybe towards the end, would love some of your questions or reactions to the topics that we talk about. And so we can jump right in. And again, we'll spend some time at the end for questions. And I think this session will go about 45, 50 minutes. So I'm going to start and be a little bit provocative. And Bill this morning told me about a Florida Atlantic University survey to a bunch of hospitality professionals, and about a third of them had said they are not returning to the industry. 1/3 in Florida. Department of Labor in May came out with data that said about 6% of workers in the hospitality industry are leaving their jobs, the highest percent it's ever been in 2 decades. And then yesterday, and this is a true story, one of our Instawork professionals on our app wrote into the company because we're encouraging people to get back to work to support businesses like yours. And Christopher wrote in and he said, "Why would anyone want a job when the government is paying us not to work?" Exactly his words. So we're going to start we'll start on the most somber note possible, but it'll get better, I promise, as the panel goes on. Yeah. Bill and Warren, what are you seeing? Where are the workers?
Go for it, Bill.
Oh, you go first.
Okay. I think they're still there. I think we just have to mine in different places for them today. I think there are still some traditional folks that have been around that want to come back to the industry. We've got to figure out a way to pay them more. We can't pay them more unless we're charging more for the customer and passing that on. We no longer can absorb these costs that are coming through, or at least I would say absorbing the extra cost from more of a transitional type situation, but we need to look to the future to be able to charge more. That's the the end result of what's happening. But I think the workers are out there, and we'll talk a little bit more about kind of some different locations where I think you can mine for some new folks.
It's interesting. Down here in Florida, the governor has ended the unemployment, and suddenly we have folks wanting to come back to work. I have a beautiful Cuban lady who works in my utility department who was sitting at home making $500-600 a week. Unemployment was stopped, and she showed up at our door ready to go back to work. So I think, as Sumir said, paying people not to work, that certainly is not to our benefit. So hopefully more and more people will come back and decide to join us and come back to work. So they're out there, like Warren said, we just have to go find them. And so we have to actively recruit, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on.
So when we talk about staffing strategies, I think it might be helpful to reflect on how catering businesses have changed the last year. And I know both of you, in an effort to stay alive and actually even thrive, have made changes to your business model. And so would love to just kick it off and hear a little bit about how your business has changed, because I think a lot of the caterers in this room had to evolve how they deliver service, deliver food to their customers. And then we can talk about, as part of that, how staffing strategies change. But maybe Warren, I know you've actually expanded your business in many ways. Can you talk a little bit how your business has changed, and as part of that, how your approach to staffing has changed?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sumir. I would say, Puff was impacted heavily, like everyone in this audience was. I would say the last year we've had a reduction in overall revenues of about 75%, which is quite significant last time I checked. We, laid off, close to 400 folks. I never forget the last week of Catersource last year. I was here, in Vegas and literally flew home on Wednesday to, make all these layoffs by Friday. I was screamed at. People didn't understand, and still, I think to this day don't, but maybe a little bit more. So we went through a great deal, but I really, I think the one thing that I guess it's a God-given thing for me. It's my tenacity, and I will not give up. And I did not. I didn't retreat. I just went forward. Went to work every single day, most days 7 days a week, at least through the pandemic, to figure things out. I needed to determine what was I going to do, what was our next path. I'm fortunate that I have another business that's in the manufacturing side of the world, and so I straddle kind of the world of retail being Puff and wholesale being the chef's commissary business, and was able to find a significant contract, which I won't necessarily talk about in this class, but we also expanded into home meal delivery because I do think that people are going to go back to that. And then, now rebuilding the team. Florida, where we have a great benefit, God bless Ron DeSantis, our governor, amazing man, and he's really helped us get back to work. But the problem is, as you all know, the sales cycle for catering is so long. So the sales cycle is 365 days, sometimes 400 days, so far out. And so a lot of our big business for 2021 should have been booked in 2020. Well, people weren't booking anything in 2020. So this year now, what's happening, it's very different for us. We're seeing almost the same number of events, but the size of the events and the per check average and then the overall total value of each event is significantly lower. And that poses some significant challenges for us from a staffing standpoint, because if I now need if I have 25 events on a Saturday, which in some cases is happening again, thank God, we're in a situation where I now need 25 leads. I can't, it's not a situation where I can break it up. So it's been very, very hard finding the right people for the right job at the right time, especially when everything is focusing in and compressing on the same times. That's what's happening in our world. But we are seeing it come back. And I think next year, we're forecasting for next year really to be kind of to pre-pandemic levels.
And maybe just to follow up to that, so the nature of your business changed a little bit, meal delivery, commissary. Yes. And on top of that, with your core business, a lot of variability. I mean, you basically had a bunch of events or a bunch of business stacked on each other. And then on top of that, maybe not in Florida, but in other markets, you have a high variability of government rules. You can have events, you can't have events, masks, no masks. And so in that world of uncertainty, you mentioned 400 folks you had to lay off. How have you thought about the mix of full-time, part-time, temp, when sort of anticipating the one thing that's not going to change is a change probably the next year?
Correct. I think it's been a very big change, Sumir. I think that we are looking at our business a little bit differently. We need to put some training in for the leads, and then we're looking to supplement with outside, other folks like we receive from Instawork to really kind of help us succeed and execute some of the numbers, because we've got to get them back. It's weird. It's almost as if we're working harder for the same dollars, and actually the reality really is we're working harder for less dollars. And so, we've got to figure out how to do this and how to make it work. And it is without question challenging. I mean, we have not. We're still in a situation where we're recovering. And in the last 13 months, I think I've had 2 break-even months. The rest of them have been losers. So we're still losing, and we're still fighting to claw back, because the problem is most of this stuff is, even from a cash flow standpoint, it's been booked from a very long time ago, and in some cases deposited a long time ago. It's been pushed and pushed and pushed. We've spent a tremendous amount of money to get here. We've carried on our sales staff all these times, and so as you kind of look into it, I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't already know. I mean, it's crazy. It's just an absurd situation. So just trying to be very smart and very thoughtful about, how we bring people back, and really ultimately the requirement, trying to really create lower overheads for the company overall.
That's amazing what Warren has done, and particularly in his food manufacturing business, which is a home run for him, and I'm sure he'll share that with you later. In my company, I started my company 41 years ago, 1980, and I've been through recession towards the end of the 80s, 9/11, of course, the dot-com burst. I've also been through the Great Recession of 2008, and then we also have had hurricanes down here, as well as a few years ago we had the Zika virus. So I've been through a lot of these downturns in the economy. Couple things that we have done. Number one is there have been some smaller catering companies that were in need of help. So I reached out to them, and so far I've merged with two of them. My company is fairly large, not nearly as large as Warren's, but it's fairly substantial company. So I reached out and joined forces with two other companies, and currently I'm in negotiations with a third catering company in Boca, whereby we'll merge our operations together. I will give them the support that they need, the infrastructure for them to carry on under their own brand name, and we will provide all of the support. So that's one thing that we have done. And interestingly, both of the companies that I've merged with are at lesser price points than mine. I'm not the ultra high luxury, but I'm like upper middle, lower upper class is where my price points. These other two companies are considerably less, price-wise, 20-30% less than my company. So that's worked out very well. The other thing that we have done, and I think everybody knows this, so I'm basically preaching to the choir, as they say, is that before anyone books catering, what do they need? They need a venue. So over the last few years, I've built out a venue resource site that now features over 250 venues all the way from Palm Beach down into the Keys. And it's called, if you want to check it out, it's called My Name, Bill Hansen, and then Miami Venues. And that has really helped us because we're at no charge to the client or to the bride or the couple, at no charge to them, we offer to find them a venue. Because if you guys have, and I'm sure, again, I'm preaching to the choir, if you guys have ever tried to call some of these venues to see if they have a date available, it's not always the easiest thing in the world. We make it easy for them, and as a result, it's really enhanced our business. We're getting involved in a lot of events that we probably never would have become involved in. So that's what we've been doing. Later on, I'll talk about the staffing initiatives that we're doing, but that's the two things that we've been doing. So,
Warren, to double click into something that you were talking about earlier, when rebuilding your workforce, and again, you a few hundred people, in your case, you had to part ways with, and you're bringing them back. I think some folks here might be wondering, how do you make labor a sort of variable cost versus a fixed cost? You have, management overhead, you have sales people, and then you've got your hourly labor. And in this era of sort of unpredictability, you probably want to minimize your fixed cost burden. Sure. So is there any advice or things that you're trying out to make it more of a variable cost that scales with revenue versus just having to have those loser months when top line is uncertain?
Absolutely. I think that it's, look, full-time employees, they cost more. There are bigger requirements for them. And so I think one of the things that the pandemic has taught us is to kind of go back and really look at our income statements. And if you aren't looking at your income statement, you should be. If you aren't looking at your balance sheet, you should be. And you need to be looking at these things and making wise decisions on how your business can go forward. If you don't have the financial wherewithal to really have someone to help you to look and forecast forward, you need to find someone to help you. There are consultants really across the board, small accountants and accounting firms that can help you to look at these things because you have to look at them. And so we make wise decisions off of data. It's very, very easy. We're in a very emotional business, aren't we? I mean, there's just no question about it. It's very emotional, but when it comes on down to it, you've really got to take a step back and look at things very, very intently. I always say to my team, I'm playing the long game. I do not play the short game. I cannot play the short game. I don't look at things close by. It's wonderful that you had a wonderful week in sales, but I'm really worried about what you're doing next week, next month, next year, and moving forward. And so really looking at it very conservatively, and then rebuilding the company based on its true needs. Pandemic forced us to kind of look back and cut wood. We just reduced the core. We reduced the team. We've all expected more out of people for, in some cases, less money, but now it's time to look at rebuilding. And so you really need to think very strategically about it. What is it that you actually really need? Can you combine and can you compress the positions? Can you reduce down? Can one person do the job of two? Can two people do the job of five? Is there a way to do that? How can you pass those things on? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we still have to compete, right? I mean, we have to compete against the competitors, and and you've got to remain relevant in your market, and so you've got to determine what you need to do. It's just kind of crazy what's happening in our world, and I don't think that the consumers truly understand or grasp the reality of what we have been through as an industry and what the expectation is. And so I think you've just got to look very, very carefully, make very wise decisions, and minimize your fixed overheads. And labor is one of the big ones. And there are a lot of different sources that you can go on to get part-time folks.
Anything you want to add, Bill?
I think with regards, I echo what Warren said about understanding your financials, and also the lower you can keep your fixed costs and the more you can increase your variable costs, that's a recipe for profitability, because the variable costs are those costs. You only need variable costs if you book something. Your fixed cost is your infrastructure, and that's what you need. It's your salaried people, your rent, your utilities, things like that. And we have gone through so many reductions in fixed costs. We've cut back people, unfortunately. We've changed out our light bulbs in our commissary. We've done every little thing possible to save money. When it was time to buy a new truck, we didn't buy a new truck. We did the math on it, knowing a truck payment was going to be $1,300, $1,400 a month. We said, heck, we can rent a truck for that. So that's exactly what we have done. In terms of controlling our variable costs, we're in a situation now where, and I think everybody in this room has booked events out into the future. I mean, I have events booked into 2023. I wasn't a mind reader, and I could not predict that this was going to happen and the costs were going to rise, not only for labor, but also look at your food costs. So we're kind of in a catch, because we have quoted prices for the end of 2022, even 2023, that are basically today's prices. We did not have the foresight to do it. So we're going to have to live with that. I'm not one to go back and say, oh, I'm sorry, but this happened and that happened, so we're going to have to charge you more. That's not the way I roll, never have.
Bill, in those cases, like if the federal $15 minimum wage becomes a reality and you've booked events that far out, what recourse? You have no recourse then.
You have a couple recourses. On your newer events, then you can go ahead and book them at the new pricing. And I don't know what you guys have as a margin for upsells, but we try to maintain a 20% margin on upsells. So, for example, somebody signs a contract for $10,000, we expect that to probably turn into $12,000 as they get closer and they want to add the charger plates, or they want to upgrade from bistro steak to filet or whatever it is. On those upcharges, we're trying to recoup some of the money there when we do the upsells on the various things that they want that they didn't think they needed originally.
Warren, is there an ideal mix? And if you know, since you asked about people knowing their numbers, if you looked at your labor costs pre-COVID and what they are now, fixed versus variable, what's that ratio of labor costs, and what's maybe a magic heuristic that people should strive towards, you think, now, of what percent of labor costs should be fixed versus variable?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think that, our fixed, we always like to keep it down in the, in the 30% range, and then everything else variable coming through. We really wanted our cost of sales to really be no more than 60% total combined. And that's always been our goal to get there. The challenge for us right now is labor in particular. It's a cost center. It used to be a profit center. Today it is a cost center. And so I'm looking at kind of managing the bleed. So because in order to attract the right people, to get them to show up and schlep for us and do the crazy things that they have to do working for caterers, we've got to pay them more. So we've made a conscious decision as a company to make that, to pay them the more money today in order to get things through. The other thing that I'm trying to encourage my sales team to look at, and it's a difficult, but it's a real conversation. Having real conversations with your customers. So even if you have, like as in Bill's situation, in our situation, in your situation, where you've booked things because of the sales cycle that we have, and you've booked so far out, you can still have a conversation with your customers about the reality of what's happening in the marketplace, and asking them, can you put forth and guarantee some sort of a gratuity? Can you do something in order for me to attract the right people to come to your event and show up and make certain that they're actually there? Make them a part of the solution. Don't necessarily just wait for them to be, for you to do. Don't think that you have to do this, you can have a real conversation with them and say, I need your help. We need to figure this out together.
And have they been receptive to those conversations?
Sorta. It works with some, it works, and it doesn't with others. The challenge that it does, here's the challenge that it does come into it. When you have the conversation with the customer, sometimes you get the customers that just say, that's your problem, you figure it out and make it happen, right? And then at the end of the day, if you've got any hiccups on the job, they're going to blame you and push you in there. But I'm hopeful that is that's the few, and the many are the ones that accept and understand the reality of really where we are. And we are. It's a nationwide type thing. I mean, I went to Planet Smoothie the other day and just got a smoothie. It wasn't even some crazy boutique smoothie shop. It was Planet freaking Smoothie. $14 for a medium smoothie. I'm like, what? And I still have people calling in saying, hey, I've got $30 ahead. I've got 100 people and I've got $3,000 to spend. I'm like, really? What? Are you shopping? Do you go to the store at all? Anywhere? I mean, let's not even say you go to retail. Let's just say you go to Publix. Have you picked up a gallon of milk? Have you looked at what meat costs are? Or a crab? Chicken's doubled in cost in the last 6 months. Doubled. 2x. It's insane. Anything more, Bill?
Yeah, Warren touched on it, and I would like to elaborate a little bit, is that in my company, we have always tried to maintain a gross margin of 40%, meaning our cost of sales, everything, labor, food, rental equipment, all of the things that go in to making the event come true, we try to keep those costs at no more than 60%, and then we generate a 40% gross margin from that. And the thing about, and we know what our break-even point is because of what our gross margin is, but here's what's happened to us. We've had to lower our gross margin expectations to about 35% now. 35%, and the only way we're going to make up, the old saying is you can't spend percentages, you can spend dollars. So the only way we're going to make up the shortfall is by booking more business. That's the only answer that we can come up with.
And so on that note, some more events, which hopefully, we get this variant under control and we keep opening up again. You need more staff. Now, that Florida Atlantic University survey, right, whether it's 30% or 20%, we've seen this at Instawork, and I know you guys have seen it. Some people are leaving the labor force. They're going to be an IT engineer, solar-powered, panel engineer. People have left the industry. So we need to attract, we need to keep people in the industry. We'll talk about retention later, but we need to grow the pool again. So can you guys talk about maybe some unique ways that you're actually finding new folks to kind of enter the pool as others leave in this past year of transition?
I'm not so sure there's any unique way. I mean, I'm always handing out cards. I was over at his hotel, the one hotel, I couldn't afford to stay there, by the way. It was way too expensive. You know, but there was a nice guy at the door. I gave him my card. I do it when I go into supermarkets. Yeah. Well,
They're not going to invite you back in.
Yep, that's right. So, and then we have a supermarket chain down here called Publix, and they have a lot of clean-cut, well-groomed young people that work there. Every time I go in, I give them my card, and some of them actually come and apply. That's kind of expanding our labor pool. Another thing that I've discovered recently that I never thought of before is high school students, the juniors and seniors. They're ready to go to work, and they're able to work at a reasonable amount of money, and we pay a lot more than Publix for sure, and that's helped us. Last thing we're doing, aside from calling Sumir every day for more employees, is we are going to hold a mega job fair in late August, early September, because for those of you that are from up north, the season is different. Down here, this is our slow season. Things are going to pick up in October. So we're going to hold two job fairs, one for commissary and back of the house, one for front of the house, and we were really going to market it. And the last thing I would like to say is something that I feel very passionate about. There's more than money at work. There's about the culture that you create for the people when they come, and making it a place where they feel welcome, making it a place where they feel appreciated, making it a place where they're welcome and you take an interest in their family and their friends, et cetera, et cetera. To me, that is a very important part of not only recruiting employees, because that way, you know, I learned a long time ago, what's the best source of employees? Your current employees. So if you make it a great place to work for your current people, then they're going to go out and bring in other people. So that's what we're doing in our company. So.
And do either of you have a referral bonus or referral program?
We do not, but I might have a referral business come August. Yes.
So there's the old saying, fish where the fish are, right? You've all heard it. I think that what we're looking at is we need to find a new crop of folks that want to get involved. And you need to think about people that want to actually show up for work. I think the gig economy which we're in has been hard on our business because our gig is a harder gig. You know, the difference here, you know, I can go and drive an Uber, I can sit in my car and be comfortable, I can go and I think you're going to make a little bit less, but then you come in or you can do these things. But when you look at catering, you know, you show up and there's a 24-foot truck with a lift gate, you got to unload all this stuff, you got to schlep it all inside, you're sweating your butt off. If you live here in Florida, you're probably going to get wet, either from sweat or from rain. You're going to be hot, maybe you get a little sunburn, then you get in there and you set this thing up, then you got to go into the bathroom, you got to make yourself pretty, and then you got to come out and you got to go serve all these wonderful people. You got to get them drunk. They're getting drunk. You hopefully are not. And then you're having a great time. And then, oh, by the way, at the end, you've got to break it all down and then you got to put it on the truck and then you got to come back. And so you've got to find a very special sort of human being that wants to do that. And that's the first thing, is realizing that what we do is hard and that there's some cool things that are there. I agree with Bill. We got to take care of them. I tell my guys all the time, if you're going to shift more than 8 hours, make sure you're sending food. Make sure you're sending drinks for them in the back of the house. You don't want them grabbing off the food off the customer buffet or the customer stations, or you know, like the instance that I had the other day where we were actually a guest at one of our events, and one of the staff, I swear to God, this really happened, I promise you, and my wife was standing there because we were guests. This is always the worst. And literally one of our staff came up to the client and just said, Mr. Holm, do you happen to have any hot sauce? I'm getting ready to have my break and I'd like a little hot sauce. I'm not kidding you. It's crazy. And so it was like one of the most unbelievable things ever. So you got to find the right people. I mean, it's really, really, really important. And make sure you train them. And even though you tell them, don't be familiar and don't do these things happen. As they, you know, it happens. But I guess, you know, probably the places where we're mining now, we are going to the schools. And we are going to schools in a couple of different ways. Someone was in a meeting yesterday, we were talking about it, and they were saying that they are, teachers' lounges. And I think teachers are some of our best employees. I mean, many of you probably, I see heads nodding. Teachers are the best. So we're talking about going into teachers' lounges and literally putting desserts in there every couple of weeks and just going in and dropping them off with some cards and just say, look, if you're looking for flexible schedule, everybody's looking to make a couple extra bucks, right? And so this is a great way. You want to work one night a week and maybe one shift or 2 shifts every month. This is a perfect opportunity for you to do that on a Saturday. And these people are reliable. They're responsible, and they're going to show up and work. And then they can probably also pluck out some of their greatest staff. Some of their greatest students that will come in, and I'll share with you a nugget. And this is the goods here, you guys. I'm going to share with you guys a little secret that I think, and I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to this fall. And I think that it is probably the coolest idea from a staffing standpoint. I don't think I've told you guys this one yet. So I'm fortunate to sit on the board of the European Party Caterer Association and get to go over to Europe and listen to them and see what they do a lot. It's a very small version of what we do here, and there's some really great companies in Europe, and they have some different approaches to things. And so there's a company in the UK, it's called Catersource, and they're an independent staffing company. And one of the things that they do is he looks to different leaders within different cliques and different groups. So he will go to the local fraternity house or the local sorority house. He'll pick that that young man, that young woman that's kind of the leader and that's there. And look, and go and say, Bill, we're going to, we'd like you to come and work for us, and this is really, really great. And, if you can recruit some people, we're going to pay you on top of that. So Bill recruits Melissa, and then every time Melissa works, Bill earns $1 per hour that when she works.
Show me the money.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then Bill also then goes to Matt, and all of a sudden Matt's like, wow, this is a great idea. I'll come and work for him. And now Bill's got a vested interest because now he's sitting on his couch on the Saturday that he's not there. Melissa's worked 10 hours. Matt's worked 8. All of a sudden he's made $18 and he hasn't really done anything. So it's a way to just give them extra money. And at the end of the day, for us, we're getting people that you have really kind of connected with that understand, because Bill's a good employee. We like the way that Bill works. He does a great job for us. So we want to try to get him there. So I think it's a great strategy, and we're kind of working and developing that right now.
Sounds to me like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
why not? At this point, why not?
so some people, so it sounds like teachers' lounges,
Yes.
colleges, high
Yes.
schools. So some folks are wondering, I've had a captain for 20 years, right? How am I going to backfill that captain or that bartender with a college kid or high school kid? Is part of this sort of sourcing of new talent, is there a renewed emphasis on training and anything you guys can talk about how you can, train folks to backfill the veterans who may have been mediocre, but the mediocre veterans of yesterday with the newbies of today?
It absolutely is training, Sumir. I think that it's rebuilding the crew of the future. Has anybody here ever been to Blackberry Farm? Okay. Blackberry Farm is a very special place. It's in a little town called Wallen, Tennessee. Okay, it's up there in Tennessee in them there hills. And it is a Relais Chateau property. It is 5 diamond, 6 star. It's over the top, and it's a great experience. And so I was out there a number of times. That's where I proposed to my wife. It's a great place, and I love Blackberry Farm. And if you ever want to do something special, it's not a commercial for Blackberry, but if you ever want to do something special for yourself, that's a place where you want to go. I'm telling you, it's sick. It's so good. And the experience and the food experience is remarkable, and the service experience is truly remarkable. And one of the things that was really neat, we went there one weekend it was actually a Valentine's Day. And so we were there on Friday night. We had this service, and literally this young man came through the door, and was our waiter for the night. And I swear he grew the turnips, he pressed the grapes, he massaged the Wagyu beef. I mean, this kid did everything. He knew everything. There was a flight of wine that came with the dinner. He knew absolutely everything about the wine maker, the grower. He knew everything. It was there. And it was just this flawless service. And so then the next night we go and we have this other young woman that comes up, and now she's taking care of us on Valentine's Day. And it's equally great. The bar has actually been raised. It's even better. It's over the top. It's so phenomenal, and it's great. And so I get a little inebriated. I've had a wine flight. I'm having a great time. It's just great. So I'm literally grab her off to the side, and I say, what is the deal? What's the deal? How do you guys do this? You're in Wallen, Tennessee, and you're probably barely wet behind the ears. You're maybe not even 21 that's in here. I don't even know what your age is, but you're right close to that if you are. And she says, sir, we train. All we do around here is we train. We train every day, and we do it. And she said the other day we trained for 2.5 hours on how to place the plates in front of y'all. How to put our hands on the plate, how to come into the plate, how to approach you when you're having a conversation, all the different scenarios, we train. So do we have the opportunity to train like Blackberry Farm? Probably not. But I contend that we can do, there's got to be somewhere between what we're currently doing and where we are. I think that what that also does, and I'm going to give you the student in a second, what this also does, what the training does, is it also gives the team that's there the ability to be better. I want to be known as kind of a place, a stepping stone for people. I want people to look at us as a place to come in and learn. And wow, the training, you always hear about Disney. Wow, I want to go work for Disney because the training is so great, right? I want that to be known about my company.
Yeah, that's another secret. If you can find anybody to work for you that's been trained by Disney, hire them immediately. What we did last summer in my company is we had a lot of extra time, and I wanted to create as much work as I could this past summer. So we spent a good part of 2 months filming training videos of everything about how to serve from the left, clear from the right, pour water and wine from the right, to how to roll a table, everything, how to set up a bar, how to set up a buffet, all of the little things, how to fold a napkin when the guest gets up. And so we've immortalized that into a series of videos that our staff uses for training, and if anybody wants to learn more about that, I will be around. It's something that we highly promote, is that it's a simple way. They can do it online. They have to take a test to go to the next one, and it's very inexpensive. So if anybody's interested in training, I know we're not supposed to talk about our own little businesses, but I'm doing it anyway. Turn the tape off, please. Yep.
Hansen, you're fired.
Yep, that's right. Another Ponzi scheme going on right here, pyramid scheme.
So maybe just reflecting on the last half an hour, when thinking about labor strategies to kind of rebuild, our businesses and a lot of the folks here, as much as possible in a world of uncertainty, turning labor from a fixed cost to a variable cost, finding raw talent that's hungry, but then building training capabilities in-house, whether it's in the form of, recruiting from Blackberry Farm or making your own videos. But that's probably the single best differentiator for everyone here, is to go find the young, hungry sort of talent and mold them to the culture that you want in your catering.
There was a book that I read. Some of you may have read it. It's called The Blue Ocean Strategy.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, and part of what the story goes is most people are searching along the shore where all the minnows are, whereas the big fish are out in the deep part of the water. So you could almost correlate that particular strategy to looking for talent to go into other industries, like Warren said, the teachers and firemen, off-duty firemen are great. And go into other areas where people need part-time work. Generally, the good part, too, is many of them are older and they're more reliable than some of the younger people that we hire. I mean, no-shows is always a problem, and being late is a problem. So going out into that blue ocean, looking in those areas where no one normally looks, might be something that you guys can consider as a result of this. So hopefully, okay. That's all I have. I'm done.
If everyone has questions, maybe just raise your hand and we can get to them. And maybe one more question for me. So some people are leaving the ocean, other folks are coming in. Maybe the last piece of building a great labor strategy is retention, and it's something you talked about earlier. which is just keep the good people you have so they don't become one of that 30%, Bill, from that Florida Atlantic University, survey. One of the things that we're seeing, at Instawork is a desire for flexibility. We're a technology company right out in California, and a lot of digital workers right now are asking the question, well, do I have to come back to the office, right? And we want flexibility. And I was telling Bill and Warren today, right? There's no company right now that with digital workers that can tell people to come back 5 days a week. Like, there'll be a huge outcry. And what we're seeing from the hourly professionals, the cooks and the bartenders and servers, is they want flexibility. Now they can't, work from Zoom, right? They've got to come in, but they do want flexibility. When you think about retaining your best staff, the folks that still want to stay in the industry, are there any strategies as you think about the next year that you think will increase retention, whether it's benefits, whether it's treating people well? What are the tips that you think will help keep our best people with you?
Well, first of all, treating our employees and our team members, as I like to call them, as internal customers. Okay, they are our internal customers, and I've always felt in all the years I've been doing this is if I take care of them and keep them, not necessarily, sometimes they're not going to be happy, but keep them engaged. There's a big difference between a happy employee, hey, this is a great place to work, they don't ask me to do much, but having engaged employees who really care about their production, I think that is something that we strive for, and one of the ways we do it is ask for their input. I look at myself at the bottom of a pyramid. I'm at the bottom, and then I've got my executive leadership team, I got my supervisors, and then I've got all my line workers, and I look at myself as the supporter of all that. I set the goals, I set the bar high, and I give them the tools so that they can do the job and create an environment where they will become more and more engaged. We, up to this point, have not offered health insurance. It was somewhat surprising. I decided to look into it and offer it to my team members where I would pay 50%, they would pay 50%. And I was somewhat surprised that a lot of them didn't take me up on the offer. I don't even know if we're going to get enough people to take the health insurance.
And Bill, how do you think about that? Because at the beginning, we talked about variable versus fixed costs.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people who are getting health insurance. But then if the workers want flexibility and they don't necessarily want that, and it's a bigger fixed cost, it seems though like a counterintuitive, right?
That's for sure, and that's where paying them more money comes in, because it's what we've done is we had what we call a stipend that we had right up till COVID, and then we stopped the stipend. But it would all depend upon how well our company did P&L wise. The minimum they would get would be $75 a month. This is only for full-time people, and the max they would get is $150 a month. And that worked to some degree. They like that. And right now I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to keep my employees happy and pay them. I don't want to get ripped off. I don't want to be taken advantage of, but I need them. We have dates now, and I know Warren does too. We have like December 11th. We can't take any more business. Keep me in mind, Sumir, because I'm going to need a lot of people on December 11th. So those are kind of the things that we're trying to do. We do have a 401k, but we don't match it. So that's what we're trying to do. But I think mainly if you make it a good place to work and you keep people engaged and keep them happy, then more times than not. Are they going to leave? Yes, of course. Every caterer in this town has worked for me at one time or another. And at one time or another, they've left and started their own company. From Joy Wallace to you name it. They work with me, and that's fine. I smile. I think you had somebody that was leaving you after 15 years, right?
We did.
Yeah, so I'll let Warren talk.
Yeah, it was an employee that we had. She was running our service team, but she graduated all the way up from an internship. and ended up leading the team for many, many years in Orlando, and then most recently took a job with VistaJets, running global hospitality for VistaJets. I was so proud of her. It was one of the coolest moments. She came into the office with tears in her eyes, and I was joyful. I'm just like, I'm so happy for you. This is really wonderful that you've graduated for that. But that was a truly invested employee. She was she bled puff, and it was a big deal. And so let me shift to the other side. I think we've talked a lot about the effect side of it, but I want to get to the cause portion of it. There's always cause and effect, right? And so the cause of the situation that we're in today is that we've probably all been relatively undercharging for the services that we've done. You listen to the world right now, and everything is going up in price, everything. And there's only so long that we can continue to absorb those costs. You are not going to be able to do anything more other than you're never going to survive this mess unless you can start taking your pricing up. I'm not talking about collusion. I'm not talking about price setting. I'm not talking about all of those things, but I'm talking about getting with your friends and your colleagues in the industry and sitting down, whether it's over, a local NACE or an ILEA event or something like that, and just talking about what's happening in the market. When you look at simple things like you look at what we pay for plumbing. When the plumbers come into my building, I'm not paying anything less than $130, $140 an hour for those guys that come in, and that's in Central Florida. Why should we be any less? Why should we be marginalized and brought down here? Look, they're talking about a $15 foot-long sub at Subway. It's getting ready to go up, friends. Everything is going up in price. I told you about the Planet Smoothie. Everything is going up, and we need to do it. You're never going to survive this mess unless you're able to do that. But you've got to produce great work. You got to do your promises, commit to things that you can do, live within your means, manage your business properly. As Bill said, you look at some of these peak days, you've really got to analyze what you're going to do so you don't stub your toe, fall on your face, understaff something. Trust me, and we are far, far, far from perfect. We have those issues. I will never forget having a conversation with Heidi Bryce at one point. She happens to be my sister. I don't know if you guys know. Heidi's speaking at the next session in this room. But we were at a family dinner afterwards, and she was just telling me. She said, Saturday night was really tough. We were there celebrating my dad's 74th birthday, and at dinner, and she's just like, last night was terrible. We had 2 people that did not show. It was a very, very complicated. There were multiple events that she was running back and forth, but one that was really challenging. And she ended up, she's schlepping on tables, working on things, getting things done because people didn't show. So we've got to figure out a way to go and spend more. And what I have committed to them, what I committed to the sales team was, we need to pay what we need to pay today in order to get the right folks. But that's not sustainable. That's not a sustainable business model. That's a model that, yes, that's going to cost us a little bit more. We talked about going to the customer, trying to get a little bit more, but in the instance that they don't, I still have to deliver excellence, and I want to make sure that we're going to do that. So I'm going to invest. The same way I'd invest in a new piece of equipment, I'm going to say we're going to invest in paying more for the staff to get people to show up for work. You got to then eventually charge for it. You have to charge.
So we're all in the people business in some form, whether you're using the Instawork app or you're using, you're hiring one of you to run an event. And you mentioned Uber earlier in this sort of gig economy. Well, driving an Uber is not like you could be a busser at a catering job. It's very different. And when I think about Instawork's history, we've never lost a catering partner because we've charged more for a craft cocktail bartender, provided that the quality is good. We have lost people who, have asked. It wasn't I don't think it was an Instawork pro, but who asked for hot sauce, to the client.
Right, it wasn't.
And so the cost of
Who's a regular employee? So embarrassed.
So there's a cost to bad quality, and I
Sure.
think, Warren, your point is ultimately people are paying for rich, amazing experiences that all of you deliver, and there's a price for that, and the end customer has to bear that. And I think most of the time, if the quality is there, the end customer is going to, the kind of customers that we all want to attract in our business or your business are going to want to pay that because it's fundamentally a people and experiences business. It's not driving an Uber, which is a commodity, drive from A to B. And I think it's a difference.
And I think of, using a little bit of yield management into your business and put that into your business model. I don't know if anybody understands what that is, but basically it's what hotels go through. You ever been to a hotel and you can book it this week for $200 and the next week it's $600 for the same room? Mm-hmm. It's just all about demand. So when you look at some of your peak days, take your pricing up. So one of the things that we've considered also with us is, instead of taking the pricing up, we're looking at maybe flipping the model and taking pricing down on non-peak. So go in with your highest price and then offer a discount to go. So especially in December and in October when the corporate business starts coming back, okay, our regular rate's $50 an hour or whatever it may be. And then, if you have it on any other night other than a Saturday, that rate drops down to 40. And then hopefully that drives people to it, and it looks, and you can show that discount on your hopefully in your reports.
Great. Well, thank you all. Thank you to Warren and Bill. Bill and Instawork, we have a booth together. So if you guys are interested in training and learning about how we're trying to solve some of the labor challenges right now, please stop by. And thank you to you both, and thank you for all of you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Cheers.